Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. The Harry Potter series is famous for many things: magic, drama, atmosphere. But one of its strongest elements is its memorable, striking villains. And among them is a figure that still sparks debate, fear, and fascination: Bellatrix Lestrange. At first glance, she appears to be a deranged fanatic, but when you dig deeper, you'll find that she has inspired countless theories, some of which may make you see Bellatrix in a completely different light. Let's dive in. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Bellatrix is not insane. Despite her terrifying laughter, erratic emotions, and love of chaos, there is a theory that there is nothing insane about her at all. Bellatrix is not crazy. She is ideologically obsessed. She doesn't charge at enemies out of meaningless rage. She acts with calculation, following her own internal logic, where there is only one center of the universe: Voldemort. Her theatricality and cruelty are simply manifestations of her fanaticism. Unlike many other Death Eaters, she is rational in her darkness. It's just that her entire reality is fully aligned with the will of the Dark Lord. Number 2. Bellatrix is more evil than Voldemort. Yes, there is a theory that she is far worse than her master. Voldemort kills with purpose. He is pragmatic. He is calculating. He does not revel in suffering. He cares only about achieving results. But Bellatrix enjoys the process. She takes pleasure in the pain of others, in suffering, in chaos. She doesn't just carry out orders, she does it with personal excitement. Some fans believe that there is more darkness in her cruelty than in Voldemort himself. She simply operated in the shadow of his greatness. Number 3. Harry reacts so strongly to Bellatrix because of the Horcrux. Harry has many reasons to hate Bellatrix: Sirius's death, what happened to Neville's parents, and more. But fans noticed that his reaction to her is too strong, almost physical. The theory suggests the Horcrux inside Harry connects him to Voldemort's emotions and memories, and Bellatrix is Voldemort's most loyal and fanatical follower. Her presence may awaken echoes of the Dark Lord's feelings within Harry, which would explain the cold in his stomach he experiences whenever she is near. Number 4. Bellatrix tortured the Longbottoms to find information about Harry. The story of Frank and Alice Longbottom is one of the darkest in the Potter universe. But some fans believe Bellatrix had a very specific goal. After Voldemort fell, Harry disappeared, and Bellatrix, as Voldemort's most devoted servant, wanted to know what happened that night when her master lost his body. She tried to pull memories from the Longbottoms, Order members who might have known Harry's whereabouts. Her cruelty wasn't just a display of power, it was a desperate attempt to find the last witness to her master's fall. Number 5. Bellatrix did not marry Rodolphus out of love. This marriage has always seemed cold and strange. One popular theory claims that Bellatrix and Rodolphus had no feelings for each other at all. The marriage was simply a formality, a product of pure-blood aristocratic traditions where personal preferences didn't matter. Bellatrix, from a young age, was completely captivated by Voldemort, by his power, charisma, and dark aura. Everything else in her life was merely decoration. Number 6. Bellatrix and Rodolphus did not continue the Lestrange bloodline because of her devotion to the Dark Lord. Why didn't they have children? There is a theory that this was a conscious choice. As a Death Eater, Bellatrix needed to remain in full combat readiness, always nearby, always available, always ready to obey. Pregnancy, childbirth, and childcare would have made her unfit for service. And Bellatrix lived for one purpose: to please her master, to serve him, to be his weapon. Family life meant nothing to her. Number 7. Bellatrix fought in the Battle of Hogwarts right after giving birth. This is the most controversial but heavily discussed theory. It is believed that Delphi, the daughter of Bellatrix and Voldemort, was born less than a year before the Battle of Hogwarts. This leads to an astonishing conclusion. Bellatrix likely fought in the final battle already being a mother and Bodins. Having given birth very recently, fans compare her to Tonks, who also fought not long after childbirth. This only highlights Bellatrix's fanatical devotion. No physical weakness could stop her. Number 8. Bellatrix deliberately lost the duel to Molly Weasley. Some fans believe Bellatrix Lestrange chose death in her final duel with Molly Weasley. By that moment, in the Great Hall, Voldemort was losing control of the battle. His spells were faltering. His followers were falling. Bellatrix saw the truth before anyone else. Rowling describes her as laughing triumphantly, even with chaos around her. That laugh feels wrong for a woman fighting for her life. It sounds like acceptance, like someone who refuses to return to Azkaban and would rather die with her wand in her hand than rot behind bars again. But Bellatrix also makes a fatal mistake. She underestimates Molly. She mocks Ginny. She twirls her wand like she's playing. She forgets that a mother defending her child can be more dangerous than an aura. When Molly roars, "Not my daughter!" the air itself shifts. Her fury sharpens her magic. Bellatrix hesitates, a heartbeat, no more, and Molly's curse strikes. Fans argue that Bellatrix's final gasp, described as frozen in astonishment, may not be shock at losing, but shock that her chosen ending arrived faster than she expected. Number 9. Bellatrix was the true heir to Slytherin's ideology. Some fans argue that Bellatrix Lestrange, not Voldemort, was the true heir of Salazar Slytherin's ideology. Voldemort used pure blood supremacy as a tool. Bellatrix lived it like a religion. In Order of the Phoenix, she snarls, filthy half-blood, with a conviction Voldemort never shows. He hides his own half-blood origin. She glorifies hers. When the Malfoys hesitate, Bellatrix is the one who screams that they disgrace the noble house of Black. Her devotion to blood purity is not a mask. It is a heartbeat. This sincerity makes her terrifying. Voldemort wanted power and immortality. Bellatrix wanted purity, dominance, and the world Slytherin once imagined. During the Battle of Hogwarts, she duels with a kind of righteous fury, moving like someone defending a sacred legacy. Fans believe that if Salazar Slytherin had seen her, he would have recognized something in her eyes, not ambition, but belief, a belief stronger than Voldemort's and far more dangerous. Number 10. Bellatrix was personally taught occlumency by Voldemort. Some fans believe Bellatrix Lestrange learned occlumency directly from Voldemort himself. Her mind was a fortress, her loyalty was unshakable, and her ability to hide her thoughts seemed almost supernatural. In Order of the Phoenix, Sirius says that Azkaban broke most people, yet Bellatrix left it laughing, untouched. That resilience suggests training only Voldemort could have given. He valued secrecy, he valued silence, he would have chosen only the most devoted to teach. Severus Snape, the greatest occlumens in the series, never claims to read Bellatrix's mind. Instead, he argues with her, challenges her, mocks her, but he never peers into her thoughts. That silence speaks loudly. Snape reads Harry effortlessly. He tears into Voldemort's mind from the shadows, but Bellatrix remains opaque. When she snarls at him, "You have been absent from the Dark Lord too long," Snape does not respond with legilimency. He knows it would fail. He knows her mind is protected by a shield he did not build. Even Dumbledore, the most powerful wizard of the age, never extracts anything useful from her. After Azkaban, she keeps every secret locked inside. No slips, no stumbles, no moments of weakness. She mocks her interrogators, confident and cruel. Fans argue this confidence comes from lessons in the Dark Lord's private chamber, where Voldemort would have stood inches from her face, teaching her how to close her mind, seal her thoughts, and turn herself into the perfect weapon. Number 11. Bellatrix intentionally spared Hermione at Malfoy Manor. The scene at Malfoy Manor is one of the darkest moments in Deathly Hallows. Bellatrix Lestrange forces Hermione Granger to the floor, raises her wand, and carves the word mudblood into her skin. Yet she does not kill her. Fans argue this restraint is deliberate. Bellatrix knows Hermione is Harry's closest ally. Keeping her alive turns Hermione into a weapon, a living hostage. As Bellatrix screams, "Where did you get that sword?" her fury feels controlled, almost strategic. She wants answers, not a corpse. Bellatrix tries to break Hermione, not to end her. She drags her across the room, demands information about the sword of Gryffindor, and threatens to cut her face. The cruelty is real, but it has a purpose. When Hermione refuses to speak, Bellatrix pauses. She does not cast the killing curse. This moment matters. A witch who murdered Sirius without blinking suddenly hesitates. For fans, this is proof she sees Hermione as leverage, something too valuable to destroy. Downstairs, Lucius Malfoy urges her to kill the intruders quickly. Bellatrix refuses. She snaps, "No, I need to know whether the goblins are involved." The line shows her calculating mind. She is thinking ahead, piecing together clues, holding Hermione like a puzzle she refuses to discard. Killing the girl would close doors. Keeping her alive keeps options open. It gives Bellatrix time to decide how Hermione might help her catch Harry Potter. When Dobby disrupts the torture and chaos erupts, Bellatrix screams in frustration, not triumph. She hurls her knife as Hermione escapes, as if realizing she has lost more than a prisoner. She has lost her bait. Fans believe that if not for the house elf's intervention, Bellatrix would have kept Hermione alive much longer, not out of mercy, but out of cold, tactical cruelty. Number 12. Bellatrix and Sirius hated each other even before the war. Some fans believe the hatred between Bellatrix Lestrange and Sirius Black was born long before the Order of the Phoenix or the rise of Voldemort. They grew up in the same ancient house, surrounded by the same family portraits and the same pure-blood expectations. Sirius rebelled early. Bellatrix embraced every rule. In Order of the Phoenix, Sirius tells Harry, "The world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters." But Bellatrix heard those words long ago, in childhood arguments across the Black family estate, and she despised him for rejecting everything she worshipped. Their rivalry may have started with simple acts of defiance. Sirius ran away from home at 16, choosing the Potters over his own blood. Bellatrix saw it as betrayal. She mocked him at family gatherings, calling him a disgrace long before she ever wore a Death Eater mask. Kreacher once muttered, "Mistress Bella was always kind to Kreacher," a reminder that even the family elf took her side over Sirius's. For Bellatrix, his rebellion was not just childish rebellion, it was treason against their lineage. This buried hatred burst through during their duel in the Ministry of Magic. Bellatrix does not hesitate. She taunts him, she laughs, she calls him by his childhood name, Little Sirius, like a sister scolding a runaway brother. Rowling describes her gloating scream as he falls through the veil. The line feels too sharp, too personal to be only about war. In that moment, she is not just a Death Eater striking down a member of the Order. She is settling an old family score. For fans, this theory transforms the scene. It becomes a final clash of two lifelong opposites, the rebel and the fanatic, the runaway and the loyal heir. two children of the House of Black who chose opposite destinies. Their battle is no longer just good versus evil. It is the last chapter of a feud that began years before Harry was born. Number 13. Bellatrix could have become the next Dark Lord after Voldemort. Some fans believe Bellatrix Lestrange was the only Death Eater truly capable of becoming the next Dark Lord. Her devotion to Voldemort burned hotter than anyone else's. Her cruelty was nearly unmatched. Even Severus Snape, with all his mastery, lacked her fanatic fire. In Deathly Hallows, she stands beside Voldemort, with wild triumph in her eyes, as if she is already imagining herself at the head of his army. That hunger, that glimmer, made many readers wonder what she might have become if fate had tilted differently. Bellatrix commanded fear without needing a title. At Malfoy Manor, she silenced grown wizards with a single glance. Greyback stepped back when she raised her wand. Lucius Malfoy, once proud and influential, trembled as she snapped at him, "Do not lie to Lord Voldemort." She acted like a general long before she was given authority. In a world without Voldemort, that kind of natural dominance could have pulled the broken Death Eaters to her like iron to a magnet. The moment that best shows her potential comes during the Battle of Hogwarts. She duels Hermione, Luna, and Ginny at once, laughing as sparks fly. Rowling writes that Bellatrix moved with the grace of a dancer, deadly and unstoppable. Only Molly Weasley's unexpected fury ends her rampage. Until that instant, Bellatrix fights like someone who believes the future belongs to her. Every strike feels like a declaration. She will not kneel forever. Her death cuts the story short. Fans are left to imagine what would have happened if she had survived the battle. With Voldemort gone and his forces scattered, someone ruthless would have rushed to fill the void. Bellatrix had the will. She had the charisma. She had the terror. In another version of events, she might have risen from the ruins of the Dark Lord's empire and crowned herself its queen. A vision so chilling that even Voldemort might have feared it. Number 14. Bellatrix deliberately provoked Narcissa to test her loyalty. Bellatrix Lestrange often snapped at Narcissa Malfoy, but some fans believe her hostility was more than simple malice. According to this theory, Bellatrix was testing her sister's loyalty to Voldemort. She knew Narcissa loved her family more than the Dark Lord, and that made her dangerous. Every sharp remark, every insult, every cold glare was meant to push Narcissa into revealing where her true allegiance lay. Bellatrix didn't trust softness, and Narcissa was the softest person she knew. A vivid example appears in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Narcissa begs Snape to protect Draco. Bellatrix follows her like a shadow, sneering, "Sissy, you mustn't do this," and later, hissing, "The Dark Lord would not approve." Her words sound like warnings, but in this theory, they become traps. Bellatrix wants Narcissa to slip. She wants to see whether her sister will place her son above Voldemort's will. The tension between the sisters grows even stronger in Deathly Hallows when Draco hesitates to identify Harry at Malfoy Manor. Bellatrix watches Narcissa with sharp, predatory eyes. Her wand trembles, not with fear, but with suspicion. Fans imagine Bellatrix thinking, "If Narcissa defies the Dark Lord, even for a moment, I will know." In that scene, every silence becomes a test, every glance a challenge. This interpretation paints Bellatrix as more calculating than she appears. She wasn't simply cruel to Narcissa, she was measuring her, evaluating her, pushing her. Bellatrix understood that the Malfoy family was slipping, losing favor, losing courage. By provoking Narcissa again and again, she tried to expose every crack in their loyalty. For fans, this makes Bellatrix even more chilling. Not just a sadist, but a strategist who watches even her own sister with the cold suspicion of a devoted servant of the Dark Lord. Number 15. Bellatrix possessed an ancient form of dark magic unknown even to Voldemort. Bellatrix Lestrange, a name that evokes fear and admiration within the world of dark magic, is one of the most formidable figures in the Harry Potter series. While many fans are aware of her vicious loyalty to Voldemort and her cruelty toward those who oppose him, an intriguing fan theory has emerged that suggests Bellatrix might have been more than just a loyal follower. This theory proposes that during her imprisonment in Azkaban, Bellatrix secretly delved into an ancient and forbidden form of dark magic, an arcane art that even Voldemort, with all his power, could not comprehend. The theory suggests that these hidden, deadly skills made Bellatrix not just a mere servant of the Dark Lord, but a significant force in her own right, one whose abilities were feared by even the most seasoned wizards. When one considers the timeline of Bellatrix's life, it becomes apparent that her imprisonment in Azkaban marked a crucial turning point in her dark magic prowess. Known for her fierce loyalty to Voldemort and her role in the Death Eater ranks, Bellatrix was captured in the First War and sentenced to Azkaban, a place where the worst criminals of the wizarding world were confined. Yet, while her fellow Death Eaters languished in the prison's darkness, Bellatrix's time there could have been more than just a punishment. It could have been the breeding ground for a secret study into magical powers beyond the reach of most wizards. Azkaban, notorious for breaking the spirits of even the most resilient witches and wizards, is not a place one would associate with growth or empowerment. Yet the theory suggests that Bellatrix used her time there not only to endure the torment of the Dementors, but to study the most ancient and obscure forms of dark magic. These forbidden spells, some of which were said to be lost to time, were of such a nature that even Voldemort, with all his might and knowledge, could not tap into them. It is plausible that Bellatrix, with her unyielding ambition, would have sought out any avenue to further enhance her power. The belief that she would use her time in Azkaban to hone her skills, much like a lone scholar pursuing forbidden knowledge, is not entirely out of the realm of possibility. There is a chilling theory that suggests Bellatrix could have come across a hidden collection of ancient texts during her time in Azkaban. These books, written in a long-forgotten script and filled with knowledge of spells considered far too dangerous to practice, would have been the key to unlocking powers that were once believed to be lost forever. These ancient forms of magic were known for their deadly precision and cruel consequences, characteristics that Bellatrix displayed throughout her later actions. The theory proposes that these texts, possibly hidden away in the deepest corners of Azkaban, could have been her gateway to an entirely new realm of dark magic. Bellatrix's rise in power and influence among the Death Eaters can be seen as a direct result of these newfound abilities. Her exceptional cruelty in battle and her unwavering confidence were not simply the products of her devotion to Voldemort, but perhaps a result of the power she wielded through these forbidden arts. Unlike most Death Eaters who were merely skilled in curses and hexes, Bellatrix's magic had a unique edge to it. Her use of the Cruciatus curse, for example, was not only brutal but almost artistic in its precision. When she tortured Hermione Granger, she took her time, relishing the power she had over her victim. This level of sadistic pleasure, some argue, could have been born from a deeper understanding of the very magic that empowered her. The theory also suggests that Bellatrix's knowledge of these ancient spells made her unshakable in her belief in her superiority. While many other Death Eaters, including Lucius Malfoy and even Severus Snape, seemed to question Voldemort's decisions at various points, Bellatrix remained unwavering in her loyalty. Her unrelenting faith in her Dark Lord could have been bolstered not only by her fanatical devotion, but by the sheer confidence that came from her own mastery of a form of magic that others feared to even acknowledge. She was no longer just a follower of Voldemort, she was a dark force in her own right, one who believed that she could command any power she desired. The true extent of Bellatrix's mastery over these forbidden magics can be seen in her final, fateful duel with Molly Weasley. In this climactic battle, Bellatrix's skills were on full display, but it was her complete disregard for the well-being of those around her that set her apart. Where others might hesitate, Bellatrix showed no mercy. Her dark magic, powerful and unforgiving, struck with the force of a hurricane, leaving destruction in its wake. And yet, despite all her power, it was Molly Weasley's fierce love for her children that ultimately triumphed. Bellatrix's defeat in this final duel was not just a result of her underestimating her opponent, but also a reminder that, in the end, no matter how advanced one's knowledge of magic may be, the human heart, especially a mother's heart, can still outshine even the darkest of powers. Throughout the series, Bellatrix's actions speak volumes about her character and her approach to magic. She was never just a follower, she was a student of the darkest arts, and her study of those arts was something that even Voldemort, with all his ambitions, might have been unaware of. Her obsession with power, her loyalty to Voldemort, and her obsession with cruelty could have been driven not just by a desire to serve her master, but by a thirst for knowledge and a hunger for magic that surpassed the limits of what Voldemort could offer. If the fan theory is to be believed, Bellatrix's true power was not just the result of her upbringing or her training as a Death Eater, it was the dark, ancient magic she uncovered and mastered in her solitude. Number 16. Bellatrix intentionally targeted Dumbledore's most loyal supporters. In the world of Harry Potter, one of the most intriguing and complex characters is Bellatrix Lestrange. As one of Voldemort's most fanatical and dangerous followers, she is portrayed as an embodiment of pure evil and chaos. However, there exists a fascinating and lesser explored fan theory surrounding her that presents her not just as a mere servant of the Dark Lord, but as a deliberate saboteur within the ranks of Dumbledore's supporters. According to this theory, Bellatrix purposefully targeted and destroyed the most loyal and influential members of the Order of the Phoenix, with the aim of weakening the moral fibre of Harry Potter's allies. This theory suggests that her brutal actions were not simply acts of cruelty, but part of a calculated strategy to destabilize Dumbledore's forces and prevent the triumph of good. One of the clearest examples of Bellatrix's targeted cruelty is the death of Sirius Black, Harry Potter's godfather. Sirius, one of the most dedicated and fearless members of the Order of the Phoenix, was a key figure in the fight against Voldemort. His death was not just a tragic loss for Harry, but a strategic blow to the Order. Bellatrix, having been a member of the Black family, shared a personal vendetta with Sirius. Their family's history was filled with hatred and betrayal, and this familial animosity played into Bellatrix's intense desire to cause Sirius as much pain as possible. The moment she struck him with the curse that caused his fall through the veil in the Department of Mysteries was not a random act. It was a deliberate and calculated choice to eliminate one of the Order's most vital leaders, knowing full well the emotional and tactical impact it would have on Harry. Bellatrix's ruthlessness is evident not only in the deaths she caused, but also in the psychological warfare she waged against the remaining members of the Order. The sheer terror she invoked was designed to demoralize and frighten those who still opposed Voldemort. Her actions shattered any sense of security and left those left behind with the traumatic burden of her violent deeds. Bellatrix understood that terror could accomplish what brute strength could not. By killing Sirius, she didn't just end a life, she severed one of Harry's few remaining emotional anchors, ensuring that his resolve would be tested in ways it had never been before. Furthermore, Bellatrix's role in the torment of Neville Longbottom's parents cannot be overlooked in the context of this theory. Alice and Frank Longbottom, beloved members of the Order of the Phoenix, had been tortured into insanity by Bellatrix using the Cruciatus curse for hours on end. This act was not just a means of inflicting pain, it was a way of sending a message. Frank and Alice had been staunch supporters of Dumbledore, and their downfall was a significant blow to the Order. By driving them insane, Bellatrix didn't just incapacitate two key fighters in the resistance against Voldemort, she demonstrated the true cost of resistance. The Longbottoms were tortured in front of their son Neville, ensuring that the trauma would remain with him forever. The psychological toll of witnessing his parents suffering and later seeing them in their broken state was a calculated form of destruction. Bellatrix knew that by breaking the Longbottoms, she would leave Neville, who was already struggling with his own identity, in a state of perpetual sorrow and self-doubt. In this sense, Bellatrix's actions serve as a form of psychological warfare against the most loyal members of the Order. She wasn't simply trying to kill them, she was trying to break them, to reduce their ability to fight. The more she could destroy the spirit of Dumbledore's supporters, the closer she came to achieving her goals. The fear, grief, and despair that Bellatrix cultivated through her acts of violence had the potential to unravel the strength of the Order from within. By removing the emotional and moral pillars of Harry's world, she sowed the seeds of doubt and confusion. In this regard, she was not just a servant of Voldemort, she was an architect of psychological warfare. Bellatrix's cruelty wasn't confined to just the deaths of those she killed, but also extended to the way she manipulated the emotions of others. For example, her treatment of Hermione Granger was another act of deliberate cruelty. While Bellatrix may have seen Hermione as just another enemy, her ability to strike at Hermione's deepest fears, especially during the capture of the trio in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, shows how she revelled in exploiting vulnerabilities. Bellatrix's mocking words about Hermione's parents and her enjoyment of causing pain to someone as innocent and bright as Hermione added another layer to her destructive tactics. She understood that by tormenting the young witch, she could not only hurt her physically but also damage the resolve of her friends, particularly Harry. If she could break the spirit of someone like Hermione, whose loyalty was unwavering, then the others would be vulnerable as well. Number 17, Bellatrix knew that Harry Potter was a Horcrux. One of the most provocative fan theories surrounding the Harry Potter universe suggests that Bellatrix Lestrange, one of Voldemort's most devoted followers, may have known the dark secret of Harry Potter's true nature, that he was a Horcrux. This theory stands out as one of the most intriguing, as it proposes that Bellatrix, despite her hatred for Harry, never attempted to kill him directly. Instead, she seemed to act with patience, almost as if she were waiting for the inevitable moment when Voldemort would deal with Potter himself. The theory suggests that Bellatrix's behavior, her unwavering loyalty to Voldemort, and her fanatical obsession with Harry Potter all point to one possibility. She knew that the Dark Lord had made Harry into a Horcrux. For most of the series, Bellatrix Lestrange is portrayed as a maniacal, fanatical follower of Voldemort, reveling in the death and destruction his name invokes. Her cruelty is evident in the way she treats her enemies and her obsession with punishing those who oppose the Dark Lord. However, her interactions with Harry Potter are curious. While she is quick to show her venomous hatred for him, particularly during their encounters in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, she never attempts to kill him outright. In fact, her obsession with him appears to be more than just a typical desire to see him dead. There is a deeper, almost reverent admiration in her gaze whenever she sees him. To understand why this is so unusual, one must consider her behavior and actions in context. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Bellatrix is one of the primary Death Eaters who captures Harry and his friends at the Ministry of Magic. During this confrontation, Bellatrix does not immediately seek to kill Harry, despite having the opportunity. Instead, she taunts him and focuses her rage on others, such as his godfather Sirius Black. When she eventually does attack Harry, she uses the Cruciatus Curse, a method of torture rather than outright death. This strange decision has puzzled fans for years, as Bellatrix is no stranger to violence, and she has shown no hesitation in killing others. Just ask the Longbottoms, whom she tortured into insanity. Why then would she not go for the kill shot with Harry? According to this fan theory, the reason for her unusual behavior is simple. Bellatrix already knew that Harry was more than just Voldemort's primary enemy. She knew that he was a Horcrux. The concept of the Horcruxes plays a critical role in understanding the nature of Voldemort's immortality and the way in which his dark soul was fractured and hidden. Bellatrix, being one of Voldemort's most trusted followers, could have had access to crucial information about the Dark Lord's plans. The key to understanding why she would know about Harry's status as a Horcrux lies in the way Voldemort trusted her. While many of his followers, such as Lucius Malfoy, were valuable but not fully trusted, Bellatrix held a unique place in Voldemort's inner circle. Her unwavering loyalty to him was a defining characteristic. It's possible that Voldemort confided in her, letting her in on his secret about Harry's role in his immortality. Bellatrix's obsession with Harry becomes clearer when you look at her behavior in the final 2 books of the series. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, she becomes fixated on Harry during the Battle of Hogwarts. As she locks eyes with him on the battlefield, there is a sense that she recognizes him not just as an enemy, but as a part of something much bigger. It is as though she knows Harry's fate is entwined with that of the Dark Lord in a way that others don't. She seems to take a perverse pleasure in seeing him fight and struggle, but she never attempts to kill him directly. This strange dynamic can be interpreted as the knowledge that Harry's life would ultimately be determined by Voldemort, not by her hand. Moreover, Bellatrix's interactions with Voldemort's Horcruxes throughout the series further reinforce this theory. Bellatrix was present when Voldemort hid the locket in a cave in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and she was one of the few people who knew the significance of the objects Voldemort had used to store parts of his soul. In fact, in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it is revealed that Bellatrix's vault at Gringotts contains another Horcrux, a cup belonging to Helga Hufflepuff. This knowledge, combined with her fanatical devotion to Voldemort, suggests that she could have known about the Horcrux Harry had unknowingly become. In addition, Bellatrix's relationship with Narcissa Malfoy provides another clue. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Narcissa, desperate to protect her son Draco from Voldemort's wrath, turns to Severus Snape for help. During a conversation between the two, Narcissa's fear is palpable, and she mentions her family's long-standing devotion to the Dark Lord. Bellatrix, in contrast, is not nearly as worried, showing complete trust in Voldemort's plans. This stark difference in their attitudes can be seen as indicative of Bellatrix's deeper understanding of the situation. Perhaps she knew the Dark Lord's true intentions regarding Harry, and how Harry's role as a Horcrux was central to Voldemort's ultimate plan for power. If Bellatrix knew about Harry's status as a Horcrux, it would explain why she never took matters into her own hands when it came to Harry's death. Instead, she seemed to trust that Voldemort would handle it. This is especially evident when Harry confronts Bellatrix during the final battle at Hogwarts. As Voldemort's plans unfold, Bellatrix does not seem concerned about Harry's life. She seems certain that Voldemort will deal with him in due time. This passive acceptance could be interpreted as Bellatrix's understanding that Harry's death would only come through Voldemort's own actions, not through her own hands. Number 18. Bellatrix saw Voldemort not just as a leader, but as a messiah. Bellatrix Lestrange's relationship with Lord Voldemort has always been one of intense devotion and a stark display of loyalty, but an alternative fan theory proposes a much deeper connection. Bellatrix saw Voldemort not only as a leader, but as a messianic figure, almost divine in her eyes. To her, he was not just a Dark Lord, but the chosen one, a figure sent to purify the magical world and rid it of its impurities. This theory offers a unique lens through which we can understand her actions, her obsession with Voldemort, and the almost religious fervor with which she followed him. Bellatrix's unwavering belief in Voldemort as a messianic figure goes far beyond typical servitude. While many of his followers view him as a powerful, albeit ruthless, wizard, Bellatrix's devotion stretches into the realm of religious adoration. She doesn't merely want to serve him, she wants to be part of his vision, to be the instrument through which his power and his ideals are brought into the world. Her fanatical devotion to him can be interpreted as a reflection of her belief that Voldemort is not only the master of the wizarding world, but also a being of a higher purpose. A striking example of this belief is seen in Bellatrix's actions during the First and Second Wars. Throughout the series, we see her willingness to go to any lengths, no matter how extreme, to prove her loyalty. Her actions are not merely those of a follower seeking power or revenge. They are those of a true believer who feels that her devotion to Voldemort is a sacred duty. From her participation in the torture of Neville Longbottom's parents, Alice and Frank, to her involvement in the murder of Sirius Black, Bellatrix's actions are often cruel and calculated. However, these acts go beyond mere evil for the sake of evil. They represent the sacrifices she is willing to make for the greater good she believes Voldemort is bringing about. Her madness is perhaps one of the clearest indications of this almost religious fanaticism. Bellatrix doesn't just adore Voldemort from a position of respect or admiration. She worships him. She is, in a sense, his high priestess, believing that the death and destruction she brings about are necessary purifications of the magical world. This belief is evident in her zeal and in the way she describes Voldemort. She doesn't speak of him as a mere ruler, she speaks of him with a reverence that surpasses the ordinary. When she tells Harry Potter that she would die for him, she isn't just expressing blind loyalty. She is revealing the depth of her spiritual connection to him. She views herself not just as a servant, but as an instrument of his will. Bellatrix's obsession with Voldemort can be traced back to her early life, before she became one of the most feared Death Eaters. Her family, the Lestranges, were fervently loyal to the Dark Lord, but Bellatrix's devotion runs deeper. She is not merely following in her family's footsteps, she believes with every fibre of her being that Voldemort is the one who will restore the magical world to its pure state. This belief is deeply tied to her disdain for Muggleborns, half-bloods, and anyone she perceives as tainting the magical world. To her, Voldemort's vision of a world dominated by pure-blood wizards is not just a political or social agenda, it is a sacred mission, one that she is willing to fight, kill, and die for. A significant aspect of Bellatrix's messianic belief is her willingness to sacrifice everything for Voldemort. Unlike many of the other Death Eaters who are motivated by power or fear, Bellatrix's loyalty transcends these earthly desires. She is ready to give her life for him, not because she fears death, but because she believes that in serving Voldemort she is serving a higher cause. This is demonstrated during the final battle at Hogwarts, where Bellatrix fights to the death, fully aware of the danger she faces. Her willingness to sacrifice herself is not born out of desperation, but from a sense of divine mission. She is not just a fanatic, she is a martyr in her own eyes, offering herself as a vessel through which Voldemort's will can be fulfilled. This theory also sheds light on Bellatrix's intense jealousy of others who are close to Voldemort. It is not merely a desire for power that drives her envy, but a deeper emotional connection. She sees Voldemort as hers alone, and any other affection or loyalty directed towards him threatens her vision of their relationship. This explains her animosity toward characters like Narcissa Malfoy and even Severus Snape. While these characters too are loyal to Voldemort, they do not share Bellatrix's almost mystical connection to him. This jealousy isn't rooted in petty rivalry. It is the result of Bellatrix seeing Voldemort as a divine being who is hers to serve alone. Furthermore, Bellatrix's fanaticism can be seen in the way she treats those who are against Voldemort. She is not just an adversary to Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix because she is a supporter of Voldemort. She sees them as enemies of her faith, enemies of her God. Her extreme hatred for Harry is not just because of his role in Voldemort's downfall, but because he represents everything she believes must be destroyed. To her, Harry is the antithesis of Voldemort's vision. He is the savior of the magical world, while Voldemort, in her mind, is the chosen one who will bring about its purification. Bellatrix's sense of purpose is also apparent in her belief that Voldemort's return is inevitable and that it will lead to a new world order. She is not just waiting for Voldemort to return, she is working toward that goal with the fervor of a religious devotee. She believes that Voldemort's reign will bring about the magical world's redemption, that the darkness he spreads is necessary for the greater good. This belief explains her willingness to align herself with the Dark Lord even in the face of danger, as she views her actions as part of a divine plan. Her actions are also indicative of the religious undertones of her devotion. In the same way that a religious follower might view their leader's teachings as absolute truth, Bellatrix sees Voldemort's directives as the only acceptable course of action. This is why she is so vehemently opposed to Harry and his friends. To her, they are not merely enemies. They are heretics, those who stand in the way of the true path laid out by her master. This sense of purpose and direction imbues Bellatrix with a sense of righteousness, a belief that she is acting in the service of something far greater than herself. In contrast to the more pragmatic or power-hungry Death Eaters, Bellatrix's devotion to Voldemort is not rooted in personal gain. She doesn't seek power or status. She seeks to fulfill what she believes is her divine calling. Her love for Voldemort transcends the normal boundaries of affection. It is a love that is not about mutual understanding or admiration, but about complete submission and devotion to a higher cause. Bellatrix's fanatical worship of Voldemort elevates her from a mere follower to a priestess of sorts, a devotee of the Dark Lord's vision for the world. This fan theory not only provides insight into Bellatrix's behavior and actions, but also offers a deeper understanding of the nature of Voldemort's followers. While many of them are motivated by fear, greed, or ambition, Bellatrix stands out as a true believer, one whose actions are driven by an unshakable faith in Voldemort's vision. In her eyes, he is not just a tyrant or a dictator. He is a messianic figure, the harbinger of a new world. Order. This belief shapes her every action and defines her loyalty in ways that are both terrifying and fascinating. Bellatrix Lestrange, as a priestess of Voldemort's dark faith, embodies the dangerous power of religious fanaticism taken to its extreme, offering a chilling reflection of the lengths one can go to in the name of faith. Number 19. Bellatrix had her own secret informant inside the Order of the Phoenix. In the world of Harry Potter, where every character has their place in the grand puzzle of good versus evil, Bellatrix Lestrange stands out as one of the most sinister figures. A devoted follower of Voldemort, she is relentless in her loyalty to the Dark Lord, willing to go to any lengths to serve him. However, there exists a fascinating fan theory that challenges our typical view of her role in the war against Harry and his allies. This theory posits that Bellatrix had a secret source within the Order of the Phoenix, a hidden informant who provided her with crucial intelligence about their movements, plans, and actions. This theory suggests that Bellatrix was not merely a puppet following Voldemort's orders, but a more calculating and strategic player than we might have thought. When we look at Bellatrix's actions throughout the series, it seems unlikely that she could have accomplished everything she did simply by relying on Voldemort's power and information. For example, her involvement in the capture of Harry, Hermione, and Ron at the Department of Mysteries is one of the most memorable moments of her pursuit. How did she know exactly where they would be, what they were doing, and how best to ambush them? While it is easy to assume that Voldemort was pulling the strings from a distance, the fan theory suggests there may have been a deeper level of coordination at play. Bellatrix's knowledge could have come from someone inside the Order, someone who had access to their inner workings and could provide her with the kind of detailed, real-time information that Voldemort could not easily access. Consider the moment when Bellatrix and the Death Eaters captured Neville Longbottom. She knew precisely when and where to strike and how to cause maximum chaos with her cunning tactics. This wasn't a random encounter or a stroke of luck, it was calculated. The theory argues that Bellatrix's spy within the Order could have fed her this critical intelligence. It would make sense that someone within the Ministry of Magic, especially one with connections to the Order, would be capable of providing such intelligence, someone who could walk the fine line between serving both sides, appearing loyal to the Ministry while feeding information to Bellatrix in secret. This would have been a masterstroke of deception, an intelligence network operating right under the noses of the Order's leaders. One possibility for this secret informant is someone like Percy Weasley, who, while not outwardly sympathetic to Voldemort, was working within the Ministry at a crucial time in the war. Percy's loyalty to his family and to the Order was often conflicted, and his involvement in the Ministry placed him in a prime position to gather sensitive information. While it might seem far-fetched that he would align with Bellatrix, the theory proposes that Percy, feeling betrayed by the Order for not recognizing his talents or his personal struggles, could have secretly provided Bellatrix with insider knowledge. He would have been in a position to track the movements of key members of the Order, especially as his role at the Ministry grew more influential during the later books. Another potential candidate for Bellatrix's secret informant is someone like Dolores Umbridge. Though she is not a member of the Order, she was certainly well positioned within the Ministry of Magic, holding powerful roles that would allow her to gather significant amounts of information. Umbridge, notorious for her cruelty and her blatant disregard for justice, could have easily used her position to spy on the Order and feed information to the Death Eaters. Her disdain for Harry, the Weasleys, and many other key members of the Order might have fueled a desire to betray them in subtle ways. A secret alliance with Bellatrix would have been the perfect way for Umbridge to exact her revenge against those who opposed her, all the while staying under the radar. The theory also suggests that Bellatrix's informant could have been someone from the Order's inner circle, someone whom they trusted completely. This might seem unlikely, but if we look at the nature of the war and the relationships within the Order, it's clear that not everyone was as loyal as they appeared. For example, there were moments in the books when characters like Severus Snape, who was truly working as a double agent, operated under the false guise of loyalty to Voldemort while secretly helping the Order. If Snape could deceive both sides with such ease, it stands to reason that other individuals within the Order, perhaps even those with a personal agenda, might have been playing both sides in a more subtle manner. The theory suggests that Bellatrix's informant could have been a member of the Order who was either coerced or persuaded into feeding information to her, slowly building a network of deceit without anyone realizing it. Bellatrix's actions during the battle at Hogwarts further support the idea of her having a strategic, rather than purely emotional, plan. She did not merely attack recklessly, she knew whom to target and how to cause the most damage. Her attack on Hermione Granger, for instance, was not only brutal, but also well-timed, happening when the Order was at its most vulnerable. Could this knowledge have come from a source inside the Order, someone who knew the key members' schedules and weaknesses? Bellatrix, after all, was not only a skilled witch, but a master of manipulation. If she had a network feeding her crucial information, it would explain why she was able to anticipate the moves of Harry and his friends so effectively. The most compelling evidence for this theory comes from the fact that Bellatrix was not simply following orders. She was often in the right place at the right time, and this suggests a level of premeditation that goes beyond what we might expect from a mere follower. Her ability to track the movements of the Order members, particularly during the final stages of the war, points to a level of coordination that we would not expect from someone who was merely serving Voldemort. If she had access to inside information, it would explain how she was able to anticipate their actions with such precision. Moreover, Bellatrix's personal vendetta against Harry Potter could have driven her to seek out this inside information. She was obsessed with him, with his death, and with the idea of proving her loyalty to Voldemort. Knowing his every move would have given her the perfect advantage in tracking him down. The theory suggests that this obsession with Harry, combined with her cunning, could have motivated her to seek out a source within the Order, someone who could provide her with the means to destroy him once and for all. Ultimately, the idea that Bellatrix Lestrange had a secret informant within the Order of the Phoenix provides an intriguing perspective on her character. Rather than being a mere puppet of Voldemort, she could have been playing a far more strategic game, using her connections to infiltrate the very heart of the resistance against the Dark Lord. This theory adds depth to her character, showing that her actions were not just fueled by blind loyalty, but by a calculated drive to destroy her enemies no matter the cost. It paints a picture of Bellatrix as a master manipulator, willing to go to any lengths to secure her victory, and perhaps even betray her own side in the process. Number 20. Bellatrix used forbidden potions to enhance her magic. Bellatrix Lestrange, one of the most feared and loyal followers of Lord Voldemort, has always intrigued fans with her complex personality and terrifying devotion to the dark arts. While she was certainly known for her proficiency in dark magic, an unusual fan theory suggests that her formidable powers may have been enhanced by something even darker: potions. According to this theory, Bellatrix didn't just train in dark magic, she actively consumed special potions that could elevate her combat abilities, alter her state of mind, and even make her impervious to pain and fear. These potions, the theory goes, could have been ancient concoctions handed down through the black tea family, or potentially concocted by Bellatrix herself. This theory presents a new lens through which to view the character, suggesting that her apparent madness and her unnerving confidence in battle might not have been purely psychological, but the result of chemical manipulation. Bellatrix's passion for dark magic is well documented in the books. She is a skilled practitioner capable of performing the Cruciatus Curse and other unforgivable spells with deadly precision. However, it is her almost otherworldly fearlessness in combat and her deranged demeanor that has led many fans to wonder whether her capabilities were the result of more than just practice and innate magical talent. In her role as a Death Eater, Bellatrix was known to be incredibly vicious, often taking pleasure in the suffering of others. But could her almost maniacal attitude stem from something more than a desire to serve her Dark Lord. Some fans believe that Bellatrix might have been using substances to boost her physical and mental state, transforming her into a near unstoppable force in the service of Voldemort. The idea that Bellatrix might have used potions to enhance her magic and her mental state makes sense when we consider her background. As a member of the Black family, a lineage with a long and complicated history, she would have been exposed to many secrets, including the darker side of potion making. The Blacks were known to have kept many dangerous and ancient magical practices within their family, such as the use of blood magic and potions that could affect the mind and body in unnatural ways. Bellatrix, as a member of this family, would likely have had access to this knowledge. It is entirely possible that she took advantage of these ancient, forbidden potions to give herself an edge in her pursuit of Voldemort's favor. In fact, we know that Bellatrix was well versed in the use of potions from various references in the books. For instance, during her time in Azkaban, she maintained her allegiance to Voldemort with unwavering loyalty, even when the Dark Lord himself was thought to be dead. Bellatrix's devotion could be seen as a sign of mental instability, but if she had been using potions to alter her perception and boost her resilience, this could explain why she appeared so utterly devoted and indifferent to her own suffering. Potions like the Draught of Living Death, for example, can create an almost trance-like state, which could have been useful for Bellatrix in her pursuit of power and influence in Voldemort's circle. One of the most compelling aspects of the fan theory is the idea that Bellatrix might have used potions to mask or dull her fear. In many instances, fear is shown to be a powerful emotional barrier in the wizarding world. It is fear that often holds back even the bravest witches and wizards from performing spells with full power. We see this when Harry Potter struggles with his own fears, particularly during moments of danger. Bellatrix, on the other hand, displays an almost unnatural fearlessness even when facing certain death. During her duel with Hermione Granger, Bellatrix's maniacal laughter and vicious nature seem almost too much for a normal person to withstand. However, if she were under the influence of a potion that made her impervious to fear, it would explain her utter lack of hesitation in battle and her ability to fight with such abandon. Her behavior during the Battle of Hogwarts further supports this theory. Despite being surrounded by the most powerful wizards in the world, Bellatrix Lestrange seemed unfazed by the imminent danger. Her sadistic joy during the battle, especially when she taunted and mocked her enemies, demonstrated a degree of invulnerability that suggests something beyond simple courage or recklessness. Bellatrix's resilience in the face of peril could have been enhanced by the use of potions designed to suppress natural inhibitions and heighten aggression. In a sense, these potions could have made her more dangerous than any of her peers. But perhaps the most interesting aspect of Bellatrix's potential use of potions is the way they might explain her erratic and unpredictable behavior. Bellatrix is often described as being mad or unhinged, particularly when she engages in duels or interacts with others. Her outbursts and fits of laughter are the stuff of legends. But they don't necessarily align with the calm, calculated demeanor of most Death Eaters. Bellatrix's emotional instability could be the result of prolonged potion use, with her mind and body constantly affected by the potions she consumed. The theory suggests that Bellatrix's manic laughter, her wild-eyed expressions, and her almost obsessive attachment to Voldemort could have been amplified by these substances. Moreover, the potions Bellatrix may have used could have heightened her magical abilities in ways that made her an even more formidable adversary. Potions like the Felix Felicis, which temporarily makes a wizard lucky, could have been used by Bellatrix in moments where she needed to outwit her opponents or escape dangerous situations. A skilled potion maker like Bellatrix could have used her understanding of magic to craft potions that not only affected her physical state, but also altered the magical properties of her spells. This could explain her uncanny accuracy with curses and her ability to land hits even under stressful conditions. As an example, during the escape from the Ministry of Magic in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Bellatrix is involved in the battle with the Order. Her ferocity and determination are clear, and her magic is as lethal as it is precise. It's possible that in addition to her natural abilities and her intense training in the dark arts, Bellatrix could have been using potions that increased her efficiency during the fight. The fact that she was able to avoid being captured for so long, even after Voldemort's downfall, speaks to a level of skill and preparation that might have been augmented by such substances. Another possibility is that Bellatrix's reliance on potions helped her avoid the physical and psychological consequences of her actions. In many ways, her lack of empathy and her ability to engage in unspeakable acts of cruelty can be traced back to a certain disconnection from her emotions. Potions like the Draught of Living Death or a modified version of the Amitentia could have been used to suppress the guilt, fear, and morality that often hold people back from committing horrible acts. This would also explain her ability to endure the tortures of Azkaban without breaking. She might have been under the influence of potions that dulled the pain and kept her focused on her mission to serve Voldemort. In the end, the idea that Bellatrix Lestrange used potions to enhance her magical abilities and alter her mental state offers a fascinating lens through which to view her character. It allows us to consider her not just as a loyal Death Eater, but as a woman who may have relied on more than just her natural talents to achieve her place in Voldemort's inner circle. The theory adds layers of complexity to her character and opens up new avenues for understanding the darker side of magic. If Bellatrix's magic and madness were in part the result of potions, it raises the question of how much control she truly had over her own actions and how much of her behavior was shaped by external forces. Number 21. Bellatrix secretly despised Lucius Malfoy. Bellatrix Lestrange was always a figure of fierce loyalty, driven by a singular devotion to the Dark Lord Voldemort. To most, she epitomized the fervor of a true Death Eater, willing to go to extreme lengths to prove her allegiance. Yet, underneath the veneer of fanatical worship, there is a layer of disdain for those she considered inferior or not living up to the Dark Lord's ideals. In the case of Lucius Malfoy, a fellow Death Eater and the husband of her sister, the tension in their relationship runs far deeper than most fans have considered. It's a theory that has intrigued many. Bellatrix Lestrange secretly despised Lucius Malfoy, seeing him as a weakling, a disgrace to the pureblood world, and someone unworthy of the true power that Voldemort promised. For years, fans have speculated about the strained dynamic between Bellatrix and Lucius, particularly when considering their interactions in the novels. They were both prominent figures in the Death Eater movement, but the contrast between them could not have been starker. Lucius, though outwardly wealthy and influential, often appeared more interested in preserving his family's status and wealth than in embracing the radical ideals Voldemort promoted. Bellatrix, on the other hand, was wholeheartedly committed to the Dark Lord's vision, abandoning all pretense of self-preservation. In many ways, Bellatrix's fervor made her seem more dangerous than Lucius, whose attempts at maintaining control seemed more rooted in fear of losing his position rather than a genuine belief in Voldemort's ideology. One of the earliest indications of Bellatrix's disdain for Lucius can be seen in how she reacts to his public failures. After the disaster at the Department of Mysteries in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, where Lucius is exposed for his role in trying to retrieve the prophecy, Bellatrix does not mince words when speaking about his failure. Unlike the Malfoys, who carefully maintained their public image, Bellatrix's scornful remarks reveal a woman who sees Lucius as someone who cannot rise to the occasion when it matters most. This public rebuke was not a simple reprimand. It was a cutting dismissal of Lucius's inability to follow through with the Dark Lord's orders in the most crucial of times. Even before that, Bellatrix had shown her tendency to belittle those she felt were not living up to the Dark Lord's expectations. Lucius's apparent reluctance to embrace the violence and chaos that Voldemort endorsed marked him as a disappointment in Bellatrix's eyes. His hesitations in the face of danger stood in stark contrast to her complete devotion, something that likely made her view him as weak. This divide between them is evident in their behavior during the Second Wizarding War. While Lucius continued to play the role of a pretentious aristocrat, hiding behind his money and influence, Bellatrix was unrelenting in her commitment to Voldemort's cause, willing to put everything on the line for what she believed in. To her, Lucius's reluctance to fully commit to the cause signified a lack of true dedication. In contrast to Lucius's somewhat shallow motivations, Bellatrix believed in Voldemort's cause with every fibre of her being. She was not just a follower, she was a martyr in the making, eager to die for the Dark Lord. Lucius, however, could not help but cling to his worldly concerns, which Bellatrix found almost pathetic. She saw in him a man who, despite his vaunted pure-blood lineage, was driven more by self-preservation than a genuine belief in Voldemort's vision. For Bellatrix, loyalty was absolute. There was no room for weakness or self-interest in her world, only blind, unyielding devotion. The tension between Bellatrix and Lucius becomes even more evident when we examine their behavior during key events in the series. When Voldemort returned to power in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Bellatrix was one of the first to eagerly rejoin him while Lucius hesitated. This difference in timing, Lucius's reluctance and Bellatrix's immediate action, could have been a catalyst for Bellatrix's growing resentment. Her belief in the Dark Lord's supremacy was so consuming that she could not fathom someone like Lucius, who had been a supporter from the start, wavering when it mattered most. For Bellatrix, Lucius's hesitation to act revealed his lack of true belief, and perhaps, in her eyes, his deep-seated cowardice. The way Bellatrix spoke about Lucius also hinted at her deep-seated contempt. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, when Lucius is imprisoned in Azkaban and Bellatrix visits him, there is no sympathy in her tone. Instead, she seems almost dismissive of his imprisonment, and when she speaks of his failure, it's almost as if she believes he deserves it. While Lucius clings to the idea that he can still regain his position and favour, Bellatrix has already moved on, focused entirely on serving Voldemort and demonstrating her loyalty. Her lack of concern for Lucius's fate underscores the idea that, for Bellatrix, his fall from grace was the natural consequence of his weakness. The difference in their approach to Voldemort's power was not just ideological, it was personal. Bellatrix viewed the Dark Lord as a god, someone whose vision transcended everything, even family. Lucius, however, was often portrayed as someone who saw Voldemort more as a means to an end. His loyalty to Voldemort was far more pragmatic, stemming from his desire to secure his family's place in the new world order that Voldemort promised. Bellatrix, in contrast, was all-consuming in her devotion, a devotion so strong that it left little room for anything else, including family or personal gain. For her, the Malfoy name was meaningless in the face of Voldemort's power. This ideological divide was likely the root of Bellatrix's growing disdain for Lucius. She would have seen him as a man who valued power, but did not truly understand the kind of loyalty Voldemort demanded. Lucius's obsession with status, wealth, and self-preservation made him an object of derision for Bellatrix. She likely viewed him as someone who was more interested in what Voldemort's rise could do for him rather than the true goal of purging the wizarding world of those deemed unworthy. Another aspect that would have fueled Bellatrix's contempt for Lucius was his failure to maintain his family's pureblood status during the rise of Voldemort. As a pureblood fanatic, Bellatrix was proud of her bloodline, and she held deep disdain for anyone who failed to uphold the purity of wizarding families. Lucius's failure to control his own son, Draco, during the events of the Second Wizarding War would have added fuel to the fire. To Bellatrix, a pure-blood family's status was something to be fiercely protected, and Draco's eventual role in betraying Voldemort's cause would have marked Lucius as yet another failure. Bellatrix's contempt was not just a personal judgment, but a moral one. To her, Lucius's weakness was a stain on the pure-blood community, and she likely believed that his failure to live up to the Dark Lord's expectations would forever tarnish his family's name. She saw his reluctance to fully embrace Voldemort's ideals as a betrayal, and it's easy to imagine her resenting the fact that she was even related to someone as weak and disappointing as Lucius. When Bellatrix finally met her end at the hands of Molly Weasley during the Battle of Hogwarts, her obsession with Voldemort's cause was unwavering to the very end. But one can't help but wonder if deep down she died not only for her belief in the Dark Lord, but also in part because she knew, ultimately, that the Malfoy name was a shame to the pure-blood world. In the final analysis, Bellatrix Lestrange's disdain for Lucius. Malfoy wasn't just a family matter, it was a matter of principle, one that saw Lucius not as a worthy ally, but as a cowardly, self-serving embarrassment to everything she stood for. Number 22. Bellatrix left behind a secret diary in the shadows of the wizarding world where secrets often linger longer than the truth. A new theory has emerged that has captured the imagination of many fans. Bellatrix Lestrange, one of Voldemort's most loyal and fanatical followers, may have left behind a secret diary. This theory, akin to that of Tom Riddle's diary, suggests that Bellatrix, a woman driven by obsession and unwavering devotion to her Dark Lord, might have kept a record of not only her thoughts and emotions, but also spells, oaths, and perhaps even crucial memories related to Voldemort and his mission to conquer the wizarding world. The idea of a hidden diary, one that could hold the key to understanding Bellatrix's mind and her relentless loyalty, is both chilling and tantalizing. If such a diary existed, it would not only offer insight into the depths of Bellatrix's psyche, but could also reveal her involvement in some of the darkest events of the wizarding world. Bellatrix was not just another Death Eater, she was among the closest to Voldemort, and her devotion was unmatched. Her brutal actions during the First and Second Wizarding Wars, her unwavering belief in the Dark Lord's vision, and her fierce love for him made her a pivotal figure in the dark history of wizardry. Imagine, then, a hidden journal written in Bellatrix's precise, feverish script. Each entry would likely capture not just her personal reflections, but also her interactions with Voldemort, moments when she swore allegiance, when she participated in his plans, and when she carried out the most heinous of deeds in his name. For a woman so consumed by her loyalty, a diary would have served as both a personal shrine and a record of her most intimate thoughts, a way to document her devotion to the Dark Lord even after he fell. It's easy to picture her writing obsessively, day after day, as if each word were a ritual act, binding her more and more to Voldemort's will. The allure of such a diary lies not only in its potential to offer personal insights into Bellatrix's character, but also in the possibility that it contains powerful and dangerous spells, ones that could continue to echo in the world long after her death. We know from Bellatrix's actions that she was no ordinary witch. She was one of the most skilled and ruthless practitioners of dark magic. Her involvement in the torture and eventual murder of Frank and Alice Longbottom is a testament to her proficiency with the Cruciatus curse, and her viciousness at the Battle of Hogwarts only further cemented her reputation as a dangerous force to be reckoned with. A diary written by such a woman could very well contain forbidden magic, ancient curses and dark secrets, spells that have the potential to unleash chaos upon the wizarding world once more. What if this diary still exists tucked away in the ruins of the Black family home, number 12, Grimold Place? It's a tantalizing thought. The Black family's history is one filled with secrets, bloodlines, and powerful dark artifacts. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that Bellatrix, in her final days, would have hidden the diary in a place steeped in her family's legacy. After all, the house was once a hub of pure-blood ideals and dark wizardry. But could it be that the diary was lost in the chaos following the end of the Second Wizarding War? Perhaps it was overlooked in the frenzy of clearing the house, or maybe it was hidden so well that no one even thought to look for it. Alternatively, it's possible that the diary found its way into the hands of the Ministry of Magic, particularly the Aurors, who were tasked with rooting out dark magic after Voldemort's fall. Given the Ministry's crackdown on dark artifacts and its obsession with controlling dangerous magical objects, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they discovered the diary and hid it away in some forgotten vault, believing it too dangerous to leave in the open. What if someone, perhaps an ambitious or curious individual, were to stumble upon it? The potential consequences would be catastrophic, a single reading of Bellatrix's words combined with her volatile magic could be enough to reignite the flames of her fanaticism in a new generation of witches and wizards. The true danger, however, might not lie in the diary's magic alone, but in its power to inspire. Bellatrix was an ardent believer in the supremacy of purebloods and the eradication of Muggle-borns, and her fanaticism was one of the core reasons she followed Voldemort with such intensity. Her diary, if it exists, could contain rants and philosophies that echo her beliefs, each written word dripping with venomous hatred for Muggles and anyone who dared defy Voldemort's ideology. For a new generation of dark wizards, the diary could act as a manifesto, a guide for how to reassert Voldemort's will on the world. It could create a dangerous vacuum, filling the void left by the Dark Lord's death, and provide the foundation for a new wave of terror. The implications of this theory stretch far beyond mere nostalgia for the past. Bellatrix Lestrange's diary could very well be the key to unlocking a new era of dark magic and fanaticism. We've seen how the world reacts to the rise of figures like Voldemort, how the echo of his ideas reverberates long after his physical form is gone. What if someone found the diary and sought to resurrect not just the Dark Lord, but his vision of a world ruled by purebloods and magic? The very thought sends shivers down the spine. Such a person could wield the knowledge contained within the diary with the same fanatical devotion that Bellatrix did, leading the world into a new darkness. This theory also raises questions about the psychological profile of Bellatrix herself. How much of her actions were driven by her personal feelings of inadequacy and desperation to prove herself to Voldemort? How much of her obsession with him was about love, and how much was about power? Bellatrix was a complex character, at once a devoted servant, a woman deeply in love with a dark wizard, and a ruthless executioner. Her diary, if it existed, could shed light on this internal struggle, revealing her true motivations and the emotional turmoil she endured in her desperate quest for approval from the Dark Lord. It could offer a glimpse into the mind of a woman who was, in many ways, more tragic than evil, a woman whose devotion blinded her to everything but the twisted vision Voldemort held for her. The most chilling thought, however, is that the diary might not be lying dormant in some dusty corner of the wizarding world. It could already be in the hands of someone with dark intentions, perhaps a follower of Voldemort's ideology, a group of purebloods longing for the return of the Dark Lord, or even someone with more personal reasons for wanting to carry on Bellatrix's work, has found the diary and begun to follow its deadly instructions. The fact that such a theory could even be entertained speaks to the pervasive fear that the legacy of dark magic is not easily erased, and that even the most loyal followers of Voldemort could leave a lasting impact on the wizarding world. Bellatrix's diary, whether it's a mere figment of fan speculation or an actual artifact with far-reaching consequences, serves as a reminder of the depths to which the forces of darkness can sink. Even in death, the influence of figures like Bellatrix Lestrange lingers, their beliefs and actions haunting the wizarding world long after they've passed from the physical realm. The potential for a new threat, one rooted in the twisted words of Bellatrix herself, is a danger that cannot be underestimated. The diary may never be found, but the legacy of its creator is one that will continue to shape the world for generations to come. Number 23. Bellatrix was ready to kill Voldemort if he ever betrayed her. In the Harry Potter series, few characters are as intricately woven into the fabric of darkness and fanatical devotion as Bellatrix Lestrange. Her allegiance to Lord Voldemort, driven by an intense loyalty that borders on obsession, has made her one of the most formidable and frightening figures in the wizarding world. However, a peculiar fan theory suggests that Bellatrix's devotion to the Dark Lord may have had its limits, and those limits were tied to something deeper: her pride. The theory postulates that had Voldemort betrayed her or rejected her in favor of another, Bellatrix would not have suffered in silence. Instead, she would have potentially turned against him, not out of a sense of justice or morality, but out of a furious need to reclaim her pride and honor. This idea presents a stark contrast to the conventional image of Bellatrix as an unquestioning zealot, revealing a hidden complexity in her character. Bellatrix's commitment to Voldemort has always been clear. From the moment she joined him during the First Wizarding War, her loyalty was unshakable. She was willing to sacrifice everything, including her family and her freedom, to serve him. Her role in the torture of the Longbottoms stands as a chilling testament to her willingness to carry out even the most grotesque of tasks for the Dark Lord. Her love for Voldemort is not just one of admiration for his power, but also of a deep, emotional, and almost romantic devotion. The intensity of her feelings for him is undeniable, and this devotion is what makes the theory that she could have turned on him seem almost absurd. But this theory hinges on the notion that Bellatrix's loyalty was not entirely without condition. Unlike many of the Dark Lord's followers, Bellatrix seems to harbor an intense personal attachment to Voldemort. Her loyalty is not only based on fear or respect, but also on the sense of belonging and identity she derives from him. He is not merely her master, he is her everything. In the world she inhabits, Voldemort's rejection would have meant more than just a loss of purpose. It would have stripped her of her very identity. She would be left with nothing, a servant discarded and cast aside. The fan theory takes root in the idea that Bellatrix's pride could have led her down a darker path, even one where she might have attempted to kill Voldemort if he betrayed her. This is a Bellatrix far more dangerous and unpredictable than we have seen on the pages of the books. In many ways, the idea of her as a revenge-driven character feels more fitting with her volatile nature. The books present Bellatrix as someone who is highly aware of her own worth, particularly in relation to her family's pure blood status. She is part of the Black family, a bloodline rich with pride, and her personal self-image is tied to her status within the magical world. Any blow to her honor would have been catastrophic. Voldemort, to her, was not just a means to an end, but the one who validated her existence. One specific moment that could support this theory comes during Bellatrix's imprisonment in Azkaban. She is shown to have endured a long period of time without her master, all the while harboring a deep sense of love and loyalty to him. However, her obsession with Voldemort also reveals something else, a desire for recognition and importance. She is not a humble follower, but someone who views herself as worthy of the greatest of honors. Her actions upon being released from Azkaban show that she craves not only Voldemort's favor, but the recognition of her own worth. It's possible that, in the absence of that validation, Bellatrix could have cracked her pride, turning into something far more dangerous. In a world dominated by pure-blood elitism, Bellatrix has been consistently portrayed as someone who holds her family's blood status above all else. Her marriage to Rodolphus Lestrange, while an arrangement of convenience, shows that she still values family loyalty and legacy, even if her love for Voldemort eclipses these relationships. In this context, being rejected by Voldemort would be a blow to her pride, not only as a servant, but also as a member of one of the oldest and proudest families in the wizarding world. It is a concept that ties directly into Bellatrix's motivations. Her sense of superiority and pride would not easily tolerate being spurned. The idea of Bellatrix killing Voldemort is not as far-fetched as it might first appear. Bellatrix's actions throughout the series have always been guided by her emotional extremes. Whether it's her viciousness in battle or her irrational obsession with Voldemort, she is driven by an internal need to prove herself and to satisfy her desires. This is seen in her frenzied outbursts during the Battle of Hogwarts, when she fights with an intensity that borders on madness. Her fear of Voldemort's death, paradoxically, comes from the idea that she might lose her place in the world, not just as his follower, but as a woman whose identity is tethered to him. For someone as emotionally volatile as Bellatrix, the rejection of her loyalty could have been catastrophic, triggering a response that would have been more about pride than loyalty. A particularly compelling moment in the books that hints at Bellatrix's potential for betrayal occurs when she expresses a surprising lack of faith in Voldemort's infallibility. While Bellatrix is undoubtedly one of his most devoted followers, there are moments when she demonstrates doubt, particularly regarding his trust in the Malfoys. In Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Bellatrix's jealousy and suspicion toward Narcissa Malfoy's closeness with Voldemort are palpable. This reveals a chink in her devotion, a vulnerability that could have been exploited by Voldemort's betrayal. Bellatrix, despite her loyalty, is fiercely protective of her place within the Dark Lord's ranks, and any threat to her status could have triggered a violent reaction. Another pivotal moment that could have pushed Bellatrix to the edge occurs during the final stages of Voldemort's quest for immortality. As Voldemort becomes more consumed by his pursuit of power, Bellatrix is increasingly sidelined, her role diminished in favor of more powerful and strategically useful allies. This gradual diminishing of her importance could have been the breaking point for a character like Bellatrix, who thrives on recognition and power. If Voldemort had chosen another follower to replace her as his most trusted ally, Bellatrix's sense of betrayal might have triggered a violent response. Bellatrix's pride is not just a personal flaw, it's the very core of her character. She has always been portrayed as someone who values loyalty, but her loyalty is tied to her own need for affirmation and recognition. If Voldemort, whom she revered as a godlike figure, had turned his back on her, it's plausible that she would have felt utterly betrayed. This sense of betrayal would have been so deeply ingrained in her that it might have overridden any sense of loyalty she had left. Bellatrix's identity was tied to Voldemort, and without him she would have had nothing left to live for. What makes this theory so compelling is that it paints Bellatrix in a completely different light. Instead of being a blind fanatic, she becomes a tragic figure, driven by a need for validation and recognition. She is not simply a servant of the Dark Lord, but a woman who would rather destroy him than live in a world where she was discarded. Bellatrix Lestrange, in this theory, is not just a villain. She is a complex and deeply flawed individual whose pride could have led her down a path of self-destruction and madness. Had Voldemort turned on her, the consequences would have been disastrous, not just for him, but for her as well. This theory provides a fresh perspective on a character who, for all her intensity and devotion, has always seemed to be defined by her relationship with Voldemort. What if that relationship, rather than being unbreakable, had a limit? Bellatrix's pride may have been that limit, and had Voldemort crossed it, the world would have seen a very different Bellatrix Lestrange, a woman consumed not by loyalty, but by the desire for revenge, pride, and self-worth. Number 24. Azkaban enhanced Bellatrix's magical powers. In the magical world of Harry Potter, few characters are as enigmatic and terrifying as Bellatrix Lestrange. Known for her manic loyalty to Lord Voldemort and her sadistic tendencies, Bellatrix is one of the most fearsome Death Eaters in the series. However, there is a fan theory that stands out amongst the many interpretations of her character. The notion that Azkaban, the wizarding prison, did not break Bellatrix, but rather strengthened her. According to this theory, her time in Azkaban didn't rob her of her sanity. Instead, it refined her, making her an even more formidable force of dark magic. In this theory, her suffering in the prison did not diminish her magical abilities, but instead heightened them. The premise behind this theory is grounded in the idea that Bellatrix, rather than being crushed by the Dementor's influence, channeled the despair, anger, and pain of her imprisonment into raw magical power. Azkaban is a place where the soul is ravaged by the constant presence of Dementors, creatures that feed on the despair and hopelessness of prisoners, sapping their will to live. However, there is a suggestion that for Bellatrix, this torment did not lead to weakness. Instead, it transformed her suffering into something else entirely, an unrelenting drive and a potent source of magic. Bellatrix was not just a passive victim of the Dementors. According to this theory, she was someone who learned to harness the emotions that Azkaban triggered within her, especially her unyielding hatred and her burning desire for vengeance. Throughout the series, Bellatrix is depicted as a character consumed by rage and fury, qualities that only grew stronger during her time in Azkaban. In many ways, this theory suggests that Bellatrix's magic became even more intense after her release, fueled not by the desire to escape her torment, but by her insatiable lust for revenge. Bellatrix's time in Azkaban is a significant moment in the Harry Potter universe. We know from the books that she was imprisoned in the prison for over 10 years, and it was during this period that her mind seemed to fracture under the weight of the Dementors' influence. Her passionate love for Voldemort and her obsession with the Dark Lord only intensified during her incarceration. However, what is crucial in this fan theory is the idea that Bellatrix's mental breakdown, if it can even be called that, was not a sign of weakness but of transformation. The very things that were supposed to break her, her fear, her sorrow, and her isolation, became the fuel for her magical power. Bellatrix's return to the wizarding world following her escape from Azkaban in the final book of the series marks a significant shift in her character. The change is subtle but unmistakable. While still unhinged and dangerous, she is also more controlled and focused in her madness. It's almost as if the time spent in the prison has shaped her, molding her emotions into a dangerous tool. Instead of simply carrying the emotional scars of her imprisonment, she uses them to enhance her power. In this sense, her magic has evolved, becoming more lethal and more unpredictable. A prime example of the theory can be seen in Bellatrix's actions during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Prior to her imprisonment, Bellatrix was already a formidable witch, known for her skill in the dark arts. However, after her time in Azkaban, her magic seems to have taken on an even darker and more ferocious quality. She unleashes spells with wild abandon, showing no restraint, driven by the need to inflict as much pain and destruction as possible. Her power seems amplified, and she exhibits a level of skill that surpasses her previous abilities. In the battle of the Department of Mysteries, Bellatrix's cruelty and proficiency with dark magic are laid bare. Her ability to cast an unforgivable curse, particularly the Cruciatus Curse, which she uses with sadistic glee on Neville Longbottom, reveals just how far her power has grown. Prior to her time in Azkaban, she had been a capable witch, but now her skill with the curse is terrifying. Her enjoyment of the suffering she inflicts also speaks to her transformation. It is as if the time spent in Azkaban has only honed her sadism, turning her into a more efficient instrument of pain and terror. Even in her interactions with Voldemort, Bellatrix's time in Azkaban seems to have left a mark. While her devotion to the Dark Lord is unwavering, there is a certain intensity in her loyalty that feels sharper after her release. It is not just love for her master that drives her, it is a sense of purpose, of being one of the few who can truly understand the power of vengeance. Her magic, once used for the simple purpose of serving Voldemort's will, is now a reflection of her own pain and suffering, channeled into something far more dangerous. Another key element of this fan theory is the idea that Bellatrix learned to wield her emotions as a source of power. In the books, Bellatrix is portrayed as a deeply emotional character, prone to outbursts of rage, but also deeply connected to her own sense of loss. Azkaban, rather than draining her, allowed her to focus that emotional energy into something far more destructive. The fury she felt towards those who betrayed her, the grief of losing her beloved Dark Lord, and the hopelessness she experienced while imprisoned could all have contributed to the explosive magic she later unleashed. Furthermore, Bellatrix's magic after her release is a stark contrast to the more restrained nature of many of the other Death Eaters. Characters like Severus Snape and Lucius Malfoy are skilled in their own right, but they do not possess the same wild, untamed energy that Bellatrix does. Where Snape is cool-headed and calculating, Bellatrix is full of fury, and that fury is what makes her so unpredictable and dangerous. The raw power she wields is a direct result of the emotional chaos that Azkaban instilled in her, and it is this power that sets her apart from other witches and wizards of her time. Her time in Azkaban could have served as a kind of crucible for her magic. While the Dementors may have drained the life from most of the prisoners, they seem to have had a different effect on Bellatrix. Instead of losing herself in despair, she found a way to use the darkness surrounding her as fuel for her magical strength. Her ability to tap into that rage, despair, and loss is what makes her so formidable. She did not emerge from Azkaban broken. She emerged more powerful than ever, ready to destroy those who had wronged her and to serve her Dark Lord with even greater fervor. Bellatrix's journey from a passionate follower of Voldemort to a more powerful and dangerous figure highlights a key aspect of the fan theory. It suggests that Azkaban did not break Bellatrix, it shaped her. The prison became a forge where her inner torment was transformed into an unstoppable force of dark magic. The theory paints a picture of a woman who has learned to channel her suffering, using it to fuel her strength. And in this light, Bellatrix becomes more than just a follower of Voldemort. She becomes a reflection of the very dark forces that Voldemort sought to control. Her power, once born from loyalty and love, is now born from a deep well of pain and anger, and that makes her one of the most terrifying witches in the wizarding world. Number 25. Bellatrix wore an artifact that protected her from most spells. Bellatrix. Lestrange's remarkable ability to emerge seemingly unscathed from the most dangerous of duels has long puzzled fans of the Harry Potter series. The fan theory suggesting that Bellatrix wore a hidden artifact to protect herself from magical harm has gained traction, particularly due to her ability to withstand powerful spells and curses without apparent injury. Many have speculated that this could be the result of a mysterious enchanted object, perhaps a ring, a brooch, or an amulet passed down through the Black family line, designed to shield its wearer from the harmful effects of magic. The idea that Bellatrix could be virtually invulnerable to attacks due to such an artifact is not only a captivating theory, but also one that is rooted in the darker, more mysterious aspects of the Harry Potter universe. Bellatrix's unyielding survival in duels against formidable opponents supports the argument that there may have been something other than her immense skill and dark magic that made her so difficult to defeat. For instance, during her encounter with Harry Potter, despite the immense pressure and the force of his spells, she remains unhurt, even as the walls around them are shattered and chaos unfolds. In the Order of the Phoenix, Harry casts the stunning spell Expelliarmus against her, but she deflects it with ease, something that seems almost too effortless for someone who doesn't display any exceptional magical prowess outside of her dark art skills. Similarly, in her duel with Hermione Granger and Ginny Weasley, Bellatrix manages to avoid damage even when powerful spells are thrown her way. It's as if she has some kind of protective barrier that renders her immune to the impact of the attacks. The theory suggests that Bellatrix's artifact could have originated from the ancient and prestigious Black family, known for their deep ties to dark magic and their obsession with pure-blood lineage. The Black family tree, riddled with secrets and hidden dark artifacts, offers a wealth of possibilities when it comes to magical objects that could protect its heirs. The Lestranges, as loyal followers of Voldemort, would undoubtedly have access to such powerful family relics, and Bellatrix, with her fierce allegiance to the Dark Lord, would not be beyond using any means available to her to gain an advantage in battle. In fact, it is easy to imagine that Bellatrix, in her obsessive quest for power and dominance, would have coveted such an artifact, especially one that could ensure her safety while she wielded her dark magic. The idea that Bellatrix possessed such an object is further substantiated by her personal connection to the Black family and its notorious history with magical artifacts. The Black family home, 12 Grimmauld Place, was not only the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix, but also a place steeped in the legacy of ancient, powerful enchantments and dark artifacts. Bellatrix's ties to this family were significant, and her loyalty to its values and practices was unwavering. It is no surprise, then, that she may have inherited or been given an artifact that had been passed down through the generations, possibly crafted by one of her more arcane ancestors. Such an item, whether a ring or a brooch, would have been hidden and protected, just as the Black family's most potent secrets were kept from the public eye. In many ways, the notion that Bellatrix's immunity to magic could be the result of an artifact ties into the larger themes of blood purity and family legacy that are so prevalent in the Harry Potter series. The idea that a powerful magical object could be passed through generations of pure-blood witches aligns with the belief that the Black family, who were firm believers in the superiority of their bloodline, would have taken great care in creating and protecting such heirlooms. This would not be an uncommon practice among families with such a deeply ingrained sense of their own importance, especially those like the Blacks, who had long prided themselves on their magical superiority. In addition to the Black family legacy, there is also the possibility that this artifact could have been enchanted by the darker magic of the Dark Lord himself. Bellatrix was one of Voldemort's most trusted followers, and she was known for her unwavering loyalty and dedication to his cause. It is possible that in her service to him, Bellatrix was granted such an artifact as a reward or as a means of further strengthening her power. The dark magic that pervades Voldemort's followers, especially the more zealous ones like Bellatrix, could have made it feasible for such an object to exist, one that provided its wearer with an extra layer of protection against magic. Moreover, Bellatrix's role in the Death Eater's missions for Voldemort might further reinforce the idea that she possessed some form of magical defense. When she and her fellow Death Eaters attacked the Department of Mysteries in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, she managed to hold her ground against the combined efforts of several powerful witches and wizards. Even when facing Harry and his friends who were using advanced spells in an attempt to stop her, she was not visibly harmed. Her remarkable resilience in these instances suggests that she was more than just skilled with the dark arts. There had to be something more at play, something that provided her with an additional advantage in the heat of battle. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence supporting this theory is the fact that Bellatrix was essentially invulnerable to some of the deadliest spells in the wizarding world. The killing curse, Avada Kedavra, is a curse that is virtually impossible to defend against, yet Bellatrix seemed immune to it in several instances. During the Battle of Hogwarts, when the curse was being used against her, she was able to avoid it with almost no effort at all. This uncanny ability to evade spells that should have otherwise been lethal could easily be explained by the presence of a protective artifact, one that shields its wearer from even the most powerful magical attacks. Such a theory also fits in with the general air of mystery that surrounds Bellatrix's character. She is a woman who thrives on chaos, destruction, and power, and an artifact of this nature would only enhance her desire for dominance over others. The concept of magical artifacts that provide protection from harm is not an unfamiliar one in the Harry Potter universe. The most obvious example is the use of the magical protection surrounding the Philosopher's Stone. Additionally, there are various other magical items that provide protection or enhance their user's power, such as the Cloak of Invisibility. The idea of an object that offers an invulnerability charm is entirely within the realm of possibility in J.K. Rowling's world. Bellatrix's immunity to harm is not merely a matter of chance, but rather something more intricate and intentional, perhaps the result of an artifact of great power and purpose. Looking back at Bellatrix's duel with Molly Weasley in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, we see yet another example of her seemingly invincible nature. Despite Molly's fierce attempts to strike down Bellatrix, she is ultimately unsuccessful until the final moment. This may be another instance where the artifact, if it indeed existed, played a pivotal role. While Bellatrix is eventually overpowered, her ability to withstand Molly's magic for as long as she does could be attributed to the artifact's defensive powers, which allowed her to endure blows that would have left any other witch gravely wounded. Finally, the ultimate question remains: why Bellatrix? Why was she granted this powerful artifact? Her fanatical loyalty to Voldemort, her expertise in the dark arts, and her pure blood heritage would all make her a prime candidate for such an object. It's not difficult to imagine that Bellatrix, having been steeped in the Black family's dark legacy, would have not only been aware of such an artifact, but would have also known how to use it to her full advantage. As one of Voldemort's most loyal followers, she would have understood the value of being invulnerable to magical harm, and the artifact could have been her key to achieving her ultimate goal, serving her Dark Lord and securing her place in history as one of the most feared witches in the wizarding world. Number 26. Bellatrix suffered from a curse that made her lose her mind. There's something unsettling about Bellatrix Lestrange. Beyond her fanatical devotion to Voldemort, her twisted sense of joy in causing pain, and her unnerving obsession with Harry Potter, Something about her character doesn't entirely fit the archetype of the cold-blooded Death Eater. What if Bellatrix wasn't always this way? What if the madness that defined her in the Harry Potter series wasn't the product of her experiences in Azkaban, but the result of a darker, more insidious force, a curse that slowly, over time, eroded her mind, warping her into the fanatical, unstable figure she became? This theory, though speculative, provides a fascinating lens through which to view Bellatrix's character. Many fans have proposed that Bellatrix's psychosis may not have originated from the trauma of Azkaban, but instead from a magical affliction, a curse, placed upon her long before her imprisonment. A curse, some suggest, that could have been cast by none other than Voldemort himself, or perhaps by an ancient enemy of the Lestrange family, an adversary who knew how to inflict a gradual psychological devastation that would unravel Bellatrix's sanity. The idea of a curse shaping Bellatrix's mental state isn't entirely outlandish, especially when one considers the nature of her behavior throughout the series. Her erratic mood swings, the manic joy with which she kills or tortures, and the strange obsession she exhibits towards certain people, all these traits point toward a woman who's more than just a sadistic follower of Voldemort. Her insanity isn't the product of mere evil. It seems almost to be a side effect, a symptom of something far more sinister and magical in nature. Consider for a moment the way Bellatrix acts when she first meets Harry Potter after his return to the wizarding world. She isn't just thrilled to see him, she's consumed with a deranged joy, nearly throwing herself at him as though she can't contain the excitement of capturing the boy who lived. When she confronts Harry in the Ministry of Magic, she's almost childlike in her obsession, twisting her face into expressions of unholy glee. At first glance, it's as though Bellatrix has become the embodiment of evil in its most exaggerated form. But this behavior isn't entirely self-directed. Her actions seem out of control, like the extreme end of some kind of magical manipulation. Bellatrix's infamous laughter, described as both manic and chilling, is a prime example of how this curse could have been responsible for her madness. In the battle at the Department of Mysteries, Bellatrix's laughter is described as the kind of laughter that sent shivers down the spine. But this cackling isn't just a sign of her sadistic glee. It feels almost as though she's not entirely in control of her reactions. It's a laugh of someone who is teetering on the edge of reason, someone whose mind has been eroded by something far more powerful than her own wicked desires. Furthermore, Bellatrix's rapid mood swings and erratic behavior suggest an ongoing struggle within her mind. One minute she's screaming with laughter, lost in some frenzied joy over causing pain. The next she's hissing in fury, or her expression shifts to one of terrifying malice. This emotional instability could be indicative of a mind slowly unraveling under the weight of an invisible burden. While some might attribute this instability to her experiences in Azkaban, it's more plausible that the curse was working on her long before she was ever imprisoned. The most telling example of this potential curse can be seen in Bellatrix's obsession with the Dark Lord. Throughout the series, Bellatrix seems almost beyond reason in her devotion to Voldemort. She worships him with a fervor that borders on fanaticism, her every action motivated by a desperate desire to please him. But this obsession, like much of her behavior, doesn't seem entirely natural. Instead, it seems almost like an addiction, a compulsion that Bellatrix herself can't seem to escape. She appears to be a puppet, dancing on strings that she can't see, unable to break free from her obsessive loyalty to Voldemort. This behavior, in light of the curse theory, could be seen as the result of the curse manipulating her thoughts, turning her into a mere shadow of the woman she might have been. In this context, Bellatrix's madness might not have been an immediate consequence of Voldemort's influence. It's possible that she was always predisposed to a form of magical manipulation, and Voldemort merely exacerbated it when he took her under his wing. It's easy to see how someone like Bellatrix, who already had a fierce temper and an overblown sense of self-importance, could become a perfect candidate for a curse that would strip away her sanity. Voldemort's dark magic is known for warping minds, reshaping them into obedient vessels for his will. It's entirely plausible that Bellatrix's deep-seated madness is not something Voldemort nurtured, but rather something he exploited. The idea that Bellatrix's behavior was the result of a curse could also explain her odd fixation on certain objects or events. One of the most curious aspects of Bellatrix's character is her intense attachment to her family vault at Gringotts, which houses the Lestrange family treasures. Her obsession with her vault and the treasures it contains isn't just a sign of her greed, it's an indication of a deeper, more obsessive attachment to the past. The vault represents something she cannot let go of, and this attachment might not be entirely of her own volition. The curse, if it existed, could have tied her to her family's past, warping her sense of identity and purpose. Bellatrix's relationship with her sister Andromeda also speaks to the idea that something might be wrong with her mind. When Andromeda chose to marry a Muggle-born wizard, Ted Tonks, Bellatrix was horrified. She even went as far as to disown her sister, seeing her as a traitor to their pure-blood lineage. This reaction wasn't just one of disappointment, it was an intense, almost psychotic level of hatred. While family feuds are common in the wizarding world, Bellatrix's obsession with her sister's betrayal seems to take on a new meaning in light of the curse theory. Could her feelings of disgust and rejection have been amplified by an external force? If the curse had already begun its work, it might have twisted her emotions, making her response to her sister's marriage far more extreme than what one might expect. From a normal sibling rivalry. In the final stages of Bellatrix's life, when she meets her demise at the hands of Molly Weasley, her madness seems complete. She fights fiercely to the end, but her actions are those of a woman who has been broken, physically and mentally. The curse, whatever its origins, had taken its toll on her mind, leaving her a mere shell of the person she might have been. She is consumed by the very madness that was forced upon her, and in the end, it is this madness that leads to her undoing. The idea that Bellatrix was cursed throughout her life doesn't simply serve to explain her behavior, it provides a new layer of tragedy to her character. She wasn't just an evil person. She wasn't simply a woman who chose darkness over light. Instead, she was a victim, trapped in a cycle of madness not entirely of her own making. In a world where dark magic runs rampant, where curses can twist the fates of the innocent, Bellatrix's story becomes not just one of evil, but one of manipulation, loss, and irreversible transformation. Number 27, Bellatrix was a descendant of the legendary Dark Witch Morgana Le Fay. In the vast and intricate world of Harry Potter, where magic flows through every page and darkness lurks in every shadow, there are many mysteries that go beyond the surface. One such mystery is the possibility that Bellatrix Lestrange, the notorious Death Eater, known for her loyalty to Voldemort, could be a direct descendant of the legendary Dark Witch, Morgan Le Fay. This theory, while never confirmed in the books, has intrigued many fans for its potential to deepen our understanding of Bellatrix's character and the magical legacy that shapes her. Bellatrix Lestrange, a woman defined by her fanatic devotion to Lord Voldemort, her sadistic tendencies and her almost supernatural capacity for cruelty, is not a character easily understood. Her blind loyalty to Voldemort, combined with her intense hatred for anything she deems unworthy, places her at the heart of the darkest aspects of the wizarding world, However, one element of her character stands out, making her particularly interesting to fans and theorists alike: her connection to a long and storied line of pureblood wizards, the Black family. The Blacks were among the oldest and most powerful families in wizarding Britain, with deep connections to dark magic. It is from this lineage, some believe, that Bellatrix draws not only her exceptional power, but also the heritage of one of the most feared figures in medieval legend. The theory posits that Bellatrix's dark heritage can be traced directly back to Morgan Le Fay, the infamous sorceress from Arthurian legend. Morgan Le Fay, considered one of the most powerful and dangerous witches in history, was said to have been a master of dark magic, using her knowledge to manipulate and control others for her own ends. In the legends, Morgan Le Fay is portrayed as a complex figure, both a villain and a tragic character, wielding great power but often acting out of self-interest and a desire for revenge. Her magic was so potent that she could challenge even King Arthur himself, one of the greatest kings in British myth. If Bellatrix is indeed a descendant of Morgan Le Fay, it would explain many aspects of her character, particularly her affinity for the darker arts. Just as Morgan Le Fay was notorious for her manipulation and ruthlessness, Bellatrix embodies these traits in the wizarding world. Her obsession with power, her willingness to commit unspeakable acts of violence, and her unyielding loyalty to Voldemort all echo the qualities of her supposed ancestor. This connection to a dark and ancient lineage would also suggest that Bellatrix's malevolent nature is not merely a result of her environment or upbringing, but a deep-seated trait passed down through generations. The connection between Bellatrix and Morgan Le Fay becomes even more plausible when we consider the Black family's known ties to ancient and powerful magical bloodlines. The Blacks as a family were steeped in dark magic, with many of their members taking part in dangerous and forbidden practices. The family was known for their obsession with maintaining a pure bloodline, and it is possible that through careful genealogical research, the Black family discovered their connection to Morgan Le Fay. While this link may not have been common knowledge, it is entirely plausible that the Black family, with its vast wealth and resources, would have uncovered this ancient heritage. Bellatrix, as one of the most fervent supporters of Voldemort's regime, would have been the perfect candidate to inherit the full force of this dark bloodline. A specific example of Bellatrix's power that could be attributed to this dark heritage is her use of the Cruciatus curse. This curse, which causes excruciating pain to its victim, is a particularly fitting tool for a witch with a legacy of cruelty like Bellatrix. Her ability to use the curse to such devastating effect on people like Neville Longbottom and others in the Order of the Phoenix reflects her complete lack of mercy, a trait that aligns closely with the malevolent nature attributed to Morgan Le Fay. Bellatrix's use of this curse and her apparent joy in the suffering of others serves as a testament to her deep connection with dark magic, a connection that could very well be rooted in her bloodline. Moreover, Bellatrix's obsession with the notion of blood purity can also be traced back to the ancient idea of magical bloodlines, which was central to Morgan Le Fay's own story. In many versions of the Arthurian legend, Morgan Le Fay is depicted as a powerful figure who sought to control or manipulate the very fabric of magic itself. Her actions were often guided by a desire to maintain her own power, and her use of magic was always self-serving. Similarly, Bellatrix's desire for pure-blood supremacy is not just an ideology, it is a means to further entrench her family's magical legacy and maintain their position at the top of the wizarding hierarchy. Her belief that only purebloods are worthy of magic mirrors Morgan Le Fay's own view of her superiority over others, as she was depicted as being above even the most powerful of wizards. The theory also finds support in Bellatrix's role in the battle against the Order of the Phoenix. Throughout the conflict, Bellatrix is often depicted as a fierce and almost unstoppable force, capable of overcoming any opponent with her sheer power. Her brutal nature and disregard for the lives of others suggest that she is not merely a follower of Voldemort, but a leader in her own right, one who has inherited the ruthless ambition of her ancestors. This legacy of power and cruelty, passed down through the generations, could explain why Bellatrix is so willing to commit atrocities in Voldemort's name, particularly her role in torturing and killing those who oppose her. There is also an interesting parallel between the way Morgan Le Fay was perceived in her time and the way Bellatrix is viewed in the wizarding world. Both women are seen as outcasts, figures who exist on the fringes of their societies due to their association with dark magic. Morgan Le Fay, despite being a member of King Arthur's court, was often at odds with him and other knights, her actions fueled by her desire for power and revenge. Similarly, Bellatrix, though a member of the once illustrious Black family, was ostracized by many in the wizarding world for her extreme views and her association with Voldemort. In both cases, the women's power was feared and misunderstood, and they were both seen as dangerous figures who could not be controlled or tamed. Another key aspect of the theory is the idea that Bellatrix's power and her connection to Morgan Le Fay could explain her unwavering loyalty to Voldemort. In many ways, Voldemort represents the culmination of the very forces that Bellatrix's ancestors sought to control. He embodies the darker aspects of magic that Morgan Le Fay herself might have sought to manipulate. Bellatrix's belief in Voldemort's vision of the wizarding world, a world ruled by purebloods and governed by the most powerful witches and wizards, fits perfectly with her heritage. Her devotion to him can be seen as the continuation of her family's legacy, a legacy built on power, domination, and the pursuit of dark magic. In the end, the theory that Bellatrix Lestrange is a direct descendant of Morgan Le Fay is one of the most compelling fan theories in the Harry Potter universe. It not only adds depth to Bellatrix's character, but also connects the magical world of Harry Potter to the ancient myths and legends that have shaped Western culture for centuries. By tracing her lineage back to one of the most feared witches in history, this theory gives us a glimpse into the deeper forces that have shaped Bellatrix's twisted soul. Whether or not J.K. Rowling intended this connection to be true, the theory remains a fascinating exploration of the dark and ancient magic that courses through the veins of one of the series' most complex and terrifying characters.